So you're doing some 10 pulls on the current banner and you get 5-star key. Now, what do you get with key besides Nilou's signature? I don't even do that for these videos. Okay, so in this video, we are going to look at the key, which is Nilou's signature weapon, what it does and who it can be good for. So real quick, let's look at its stats and its passive. I'm not even gonna try and say the full name, by the way, this is just key. So key is going to get up HP, this is at level 90 R1 by 66.2%, and then its passive is going to be the Sunken Song of the Sands, which is going to increase HP by another 20%, which is really, really good for Nilou. When an elemental skill hits an opponent, you gain the Grand Hymn effect for 20 seconds. This effect will increase the elemental mastery of the equipping character by 0.12% of their max HP. This effect can trigger once every 0.3 seconds with a max of 3 stacks, so you need to make sure that you're hitting the enemy 3 times with the skill. When this effect gains 3 stacks, or when the 3rd stack's duration is refreshed, the elemental mastery of all nearby party members will be increased by 0.2% of the wielder's max HP. So this weapon is really, really good for Nilou. So as you'll see whenever I show Bountiful Core behind me, this will give a ton of EM, not only to Nilou, but to our other characters. So real quick, let's show this in effect and actually look at the on-screen indicator for key. Now, Nilou's EM is 216, and Nahida's current EM is 1103. This is before we activate key's passive. If we use the skill, you're gonna notice this little gold symbol that appears next to Nilou that indicates that we have got 1 stack. If we use it again, we have 2 stacks. If we use it a 3rd time, we have 3 stacks, and we're just gonna finish out her skill because why not? It's always great to see the aura. If we then look at Nilou's EM, it is 638, so it's gone up quite a good bit. And then, of course, Nahida's has gone up to 1,254, which has also increased a fair good amount. So this is really, really good at giving EM to our characters. You can see the EM of everybody else is also relatively high as well. Now, if we just use Nahida to control-alt-delete these guys, you quickly see that, the blooms do a lot of damage. If we then allow for it to expire, you're going to notice that the symbols are gone, meaning we are no longer getting any of the stacks of this weapon. It does, however, coincide really, really well with Nilou's skill with the refresh time. Like, you can have permanent uptime with key with Nilou's skill. So now as Bountiful Core is going on behind us, you're going to see that it is going to increase the team's EM, right? It's going to do a lot of damage, or it's going to allow for all of our characters to get a good EM buff. And the good thing about doing this too is that with Nahida's burst, even if Nilou steals some blooms, having 0 EM investment, it is going to be okay because they are still going to do close to 40,000 damage, which is really, really good for a Nilou that only has 200 EM without any kind of effects or passives, which is really, really good. I do need to get that a little bit higher though. Now, who can use this main stat and this passive? Well, of course, Nilou, right? It is her signature weapon for a very, very good reason. With the way that Nilou works with Bountiful Core, you want to try and get her HP as high as you can. Her passives, or the way that Bountiful Core works, maxes out when her HP is roughly 75,000, right? It's a little bit below, but just 75,000 is kind of like the benchmark that you want to go to, which is why my Nilou has 75,300 HP to get the full effect of the Bountiful Core. Also, because of how her skill works, being able to hit 4 times, not just 3, but 4, then it is also going to give this EM buff. So as you can see in the background with Bountiful Core happening behind me, if Nilou steals some blooms with key and with Nahida's burst, it's okay. Her blooms are still doing almost 40k damage on the Bountiful Cores. Now, who are some other characters that can use this weapon? Well, of course, we're gonna have to talk about Layla, because in Layla we trust. This is gonna be a really, really good weapon for Layla because it's gonna get up her HP, but she can also make use of this passive. This will allow for me to get her HP up to around 50k. It's like 49,000 and some change. The way that her skill works is that it will accumulate these it will accumulate these ice stars that once there's 4 of them, they fire off, meaning that they activate the passive of key, and they fire off at a good enough rate, or slow enough rate, or fast enough rate. They fire off at a good rate to where we can get all 3 stacks, and we can give EM to somebody like Arlecchino, who we want EM on for melts and vapes. I almost said velps. For melts and vapes, we want 200 EM on Arlecchino, and this gives her, this key gives Arlecchino the 200 EM that we want. So this can be a very, very good option for a character like Layla, where you also want to pass some EM onto other characters for the melts, for the vapes. And of course it does, she can use that HP because her shield scales off of HP. Now, I don't even know if my Arlecchino has all of her artifacts, so I just ran into this domain to show it. So don't come at me after with the damage that my Arlecchino is doing. Also, I kind of benched Arlecchino, so, you know. I tend to get a character that does a lot of damage and then bench them as soon as I get them. Now with Layla too, it does take a little bit of time to build up the ice shards unless you're using other character skills. You can increase the rate at which these ice shards are created by using your other character skills. So just make sure that you work it into a good rotation to where you're going to be creating these ice shards at a good rate to get the EM on whoever you want. Now, the third character that we're going to look at is going to be Kirara. Kirara's shield also scales off of HP, so it can be very, very good, but she doesn't have a mechanic like Layla that like builds up these shots that then fire out, right? And she doesn't have like a multiple tap of her skill that allows her to get all 3 stacks like Nilou. But you still can get all 3 stacks from Kirara. I don't know why I'm doing this a lot. You still can get all 3 stacks from Kirara. And what I found is that if you hit her skill and hold it down, right, you're going to do an initial hit of Dendro. You're going to do a hit of Dendro and the cat box of Tomb and Terror and Doom, which will be your second hit. And then your third hit will be whenever you release the E, it will do another Dendro hit. All of that is considered Dendro or skill damage, and you can do it relatively fast without interrupting anything. So you can get all 3 of the stacks for Key's passive, and you're getting your entire team's EM up. So Tighnari's going to love that in this team, Fischl's going to love that, and Beto, because it's all spread and aggravate damage. So this is going to be a good option for her as well. She can trigger the 3 stacks, and then once the shield goes down, you just simply do it again, right? Same thing with Layla, same thing with Nilou. As soon as the stacks go down, or right as they're about to go down, once you get used to the timing, you can then just go back to them, use their skill, build it all back up, and then everything's going to be good. So those are 3 characters that can use this weapon, and 3 vastly different teams. One being a Bountiful Core team, one being an Arlecchino Vape Melt team, and then one being an Aggravate Spread team. So we have 3 different characters of 3 different elements using this weapon, all to phenomenal degrees, right? But of course, because in Nilou we trust, we are going to give this back to Nilou. It is her signature. It will never ever come off of her again. That is a promise that I make. That is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or someone who's switched to answer, and I'll see you in the next one.